Joining me now is Bill Polian, a ESPN NFL analyst and former GM and president of the Indianapolis Colts. Thanks for joining me today, Bill. Let's get right to it. Gregg Williams takes over as the interim head coach. Do you think this is a good, quick fix for the Browns?
Well, it is a good, quick fix. Gregg's been a head coach before, so he knows the drill. He's a defensive coordinator by trade. That's always a good thing in terms of being able to manage the game and things of that nature. So I think it is a good, quick fix. We'll see if it pans out in the long run. It's always a change. It's difficult for the players when there's a midseason change because in a lot of ways they've been indoctrinated into the way the former head coach does things, and now Gregg's going to do it differently. But we'll see what pans out over the long run.
We just learned recently that the Haslams are now giving John Dorsey permission to go out and get his guy at the end of the year. Who do you think is the best candidate for this position and the best guy for John Dorsey?
Well, it doesn't matter what I think. Most importantly, it's what John Dorsey thinks and whom he thinks is the best guy. The most important thing is to recognize that you won't know until the end of the season who the best person is, because you won't know who's available until the end of the season. Right. For example, when we changed coaches in Indianapolis, I believe it was in 2000, we never expected that Tony Dungy would become available. And he did, and obviously the rest is history. So John's got a list that he's working from. Every general manager has one. But he's doing research now, but he's going to be very, very cognizant at both levels, college and professional, who becomes available at the end of the season.
Bill, in your opinion, I'll ask it another way, there's been talk about Lincoln Riley, a guy coming out of college, and potentially some NFL guys. Is there a right fit for the Browns? Do you want to go after a young guy that's in college, or do you want that NFL experience?
Generally speaking, I always wanted someone with NFL experience. Now, I'll give you an example of a coach with NFL experience who went back to college and did tremendously well, and that was Bobby Ross. Mm-hmm. Happened to work with him with the Kansas City Chiefs, and it was obvious that he was going to be a great head coach at any level. Jimmy Johnson came in without any NFL experience and had a rocky first couple years, but then adopted very quickly and did phenomenally well. So it can go both ways. But generally speaking, if you have NFL experience in some form, it's helpful.
Looking above the head coaching spot at GM, John Dorsey coming in. He was over in Kansas City, and we've seen what he was able to do with the Chiefs. Do you think he's the right man moving forward for the Browns and can kind of turn this organization around?
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about that. He's already chosen Baker Mayfield. He's brought some good players to the team. He's brought a sense of professionalism to the front office that didn't exist before. He's made the decision to change coaches, which probably in the long run will prove to be the right decision. And I'm confident that he'll make the right decision in terms of hiring a head coach. He's an outstanding professional. He knows his business, and it's a good day for the Browns when he was hired.
You mentioned the coaching changes, firing Hugh Jackson and Todd Haley. Gregg Williams steps in. How much does this affect guys like Baker Mayfield and some of the other guys in the locker room?
I think it affects everybody, but most particularly the quarterback, because you're now hearing from someone in Gregg Williams who's on the other side of the ball. Now, that can be good or bad. It doesn't make any difference. But you're hearing someone with another viewpoint of the ball. And another viewpoint of what you may or may not be. If you've got a defensive coach, it's helpful, I think, to a quarterback because he knows what the quarterback does that bothers defenses. That's a really interesting point of view. We found that with Tony Dungy in Indianapolis. He was helpful to Peyton Manning because he could always discuss with Peyton what defenses would do against him. So there's a positive to it. Every player it suffers a little bit and wonders a little bit what the future holds when there is a coaching change. But the bottom line is, if you play well, things usually work out. My mentor, Marv Levy, always used to say, Good things happen when you win, and bad things happen when you lose. And that's a truism in this business.
Bill, final question for you. Do you think this coaching staff needs a complete overhaul at the end of the year?
That's up to the head coach. You sit down and talk with the head coach as a general manager. You get his feelings on assistant coaches and how he wants it structured and with whom he wants to work. That's all part of how you select the head coach. Staff selection is a big part of the evaluation process, and generally speaking, he's going to want his own people. Typically these days in the NFL with coaching staff that are 20 and larger, you retain 2 or 3 people, sometimes a few more, but usually there's a very large turnover when there's a turnover in the head coach.